Welcome back on this channel, friends. Today I am going to share my own journey or my own experience of a heart attack. How I got a heart attack, what were the symptoms that I faced, then what was the process through which I was rushed to the hospital, what were some of the things that happened before the operation itself. It was a bypass surgery, to be more precise. And what are the things that happened just before, a day before the bypass surgery, what happened after the bypass surgery, and my subsequent recovery. I want to share everything in this one video with the intent that if any of you are in need of such information, then you should be able to get it at one place. In order that, I understand that there may be various types of people who may want to view this video, not as a generic entertainment, of course. So there will be people who may be looking out for information before anything happens. So the video is for them. Second, some people may be actually undergoing, their relatives or family member are actually undergoing some kind of a situation right now, and it may be an emergency situation as well. So it is for them as well. And some may be already operated on, and then they want to know whether are there any problems associated which I faced, and which a similar problem can be faced by somebody who is near and dear, or maybe you yourself who is watching this video have gone through such a state. So for that matter, I have sequenced the video into some kind of time slots. And what I'm going to do now is, over here, I am going to bifurcate this video into different time slots. So if you look at the time slots mentioned on this chart, you should be able to jump on a particular section if you really need that information fast. Not necessary to go through the entire sequence. For those of you who want to go through it in totality, this entire information is available for you in totality right here now. So while I will start with this information flow in a minute from now, I just want to put up a generic instructions that since you are on part of this channel right now, whenever you feel that okay, enough of this information, because you may not be needing it right now, maybe you are free to watch my other videos by pressing this I button on top, and you will see various sections, and depending upon what you like, you can visit those sections as well. Okay, so here I begin. It all started as a quite, I will not say a normal day, it was a special day. In fact, the day of arrival of Lord Ganesha in the year 2019, that means last year itself. There were hectic activities since the morning, like bringing our Sarvajanik Lord Ganesha. Those of you who are not from India or who do not know this kind of a culture, Lord Ganesha is one of the most revered gods among Hindus, and there is a festival where people collectively bring an idol of Lord Ganesha and do a lot of fun and frolic apart from the worship that they do for Lord Ganesha. So it was that day, and when the idol was brought, we had a lot of activities around it. In fact, for the 2 weeks prior to that, we were all planning for a stage singing program. I was a part of that. In fact, I was one of the organizers where all of us met at my house, where we used to practice a lot for singing. And these were some of the high pitched songs as well. So what happened was that for the last few days, I was feeling some sort of heaviness in my on my chest, as if continually there is one pillow, a light kind of a pillow kept on top of my chest. If you tie a small pillow on top of your chest, how do you feel? So I will not call it as pain, I will not call it as any burning sensation, but it was a slightly loaded chest. So I always thought that it is because of some singing that I am doing at high pitch singing, maybe because of that. So we had this stage show where I performed, and in between performances I was sitting on the stage itself with a chair, and I was a little bit rubbing my chest a little bit now and then. So there were some people who were in the crowd who observed this. In fact, my wife and her friend, they too observed. One doctor who was alongside me, to be more precise, my friend Dr. Kocher was in the singing troupe along with me, and he also observed that there is some different behavior that I was exhibiting. I was rubbing my chest and maybe pressing my arm. So some symptoms they noticed, but I never personally thought that this is anything to do with the attack. I always thought, like every individual thinks that, oh, I am troubled with maybe acidity or something else, but not an attack. That is a generic feeling, and our minds tend to believe that it is not happening with us, and that is what happened with me also. So that day went by. It was a happy day where we performed well, and then went to sleep. The next day, as I was describing, was the day of arrival of Lord Ganesha. From the morning, there was hectic activity. We danced to the tune of some music while arrival of Lord Ganesha, who is also called as a god of removing obstacles. So the same god we were worshipping, and a lot of fun frolic activities happened. So all that was happening. The entire day was with hectic activity, visiting different houses for this auspicious occasion only. And towards the end, when everything was over, uh, there is a period where we sing hymns in praise of the god, which is Arti. So I am just translating for a non-Indian audience also. So some of you who may be from the same Hindu culture may wonder why I am trying to use a language, trying to translate things like Arti. It is for a global audience. So when the night Aarti was also over, dinner was also over, around 11:30, I found myself profusely sweating. Now this sweating is also not abnormal for me. Let me tell you that this sweating does occur whenever there is a slight humid condition. I sweat a lot. So there also I did not suspect anything wrong. Uh, Everything was over. When I came up, I, I found the pain little bit intensifying. I will not call it the pain yet. It was this, whatever the pressure, slightly intensifying, and something I was feeling that, it is not normal, it is slightly aggravating. Still, I was not ready to say that it was a heart attack or it was any symptom of that. Uh, I thought, okay, I'm sweating, let me change over a little bit, or maybe I should go like this, I should meet and see of my friends and then come back. So I just washed my face and hands. I just went down again, and my house is on the sixth floor. So I went down walking. I took the stairs, and when okay, sorry, I did not take the stairs. When I went to the lift door, when I reached the lift part, I had this feeling that, oh, this is intensifying, and if it was an attack, then maybe taking the stairs may not be the correct decision. That is what I just recalled while talking to you, and hence I decided to consciously take the lift. And when I went into the lift, I also was thinking that, okay, there are some emails that I keep on reading or some WhatsApp messages that I keep on reading where you should be coughing rigorously if you are faced with an attack, and then breathing rigorously. So I thought, let me do that just in case this is an attack, then maybe it may save me. So I started coughing vigorously in the lift and breathing vigorously. And when the lift door opened below, I behaved normal, though the pain was a little bit more, and it was intensifying in fact. So I thought this is acidity again. Okay. So I met my friends, I seed off my friends. I called up my wife. I asked her where she is, and she was with her friend, which is in the same building. And these are our family friends, where my friend Chetan is available there. So I thought, okay, let me go to their house, and maybe if I sit down and relax, I shall feel better. So I offered to go to their house. So I went to my friend Chetan's house. When I went there, I sat there on one of the swings that they have right inside the house. And while we were talking, I told him that, I feel that I am having acidity. So do you have a tablet on acidity? Do you have something, which will help me? And he and his wife Aboli, they clearly could understand that there is some distress that I am in. And they were the first of the friends who could actually get to know me more closely. We are close friends, so they understood my expressions and maybe something wrong, and maybe acidity problem. So immediately they gave me a acidity related tablet, one of the best which they thought. I took it, I consumed it, but there was no respite. I was feeling not okay, terrible. I was started feeling much more terrible before, even before reaching his house. So this was not improving with the tablet. So immediately the conversation that was going on, I could not really be a part of that conversation because I was internally focused now, by now. Uh, Something was going wrong inside me, so I told them that I am leaving. I just cannot, be taking part in this conversation because I am not able to focus. So they understood. They told me that if there is something that happens, please let us know. We will help you.
I still remember the other day, it was Ganesh Chaturthi. Sachin was, as usual, busy in his hectic schedule of the events, managing the entire event and everything. Once the day ended and the events were over and all, we thought of meeting at my place. And Shilpa, his wife, was there, my wife Abudi was there. And Sachin was taking a little bit more time, so we just told him that we'll proceed to our house, to my house, and asked him to join us. So Sachin came in a little bit later, and from the time he stepped in, we could notice that he was with a little bit of at discomfort. Aboli had mentioned while he was doing the program that he was constantly rubbing at his chest and trying to at some kind of a discomfort at that point of time. Then when he came in, still he was at a little bit of discomforted in this thing. So we asked him what was the issue. He said that I'm feeling a little bit of acidic. So Avoli, my wife, she basically asked him whether he wants an antacid or something like that, and we gave him an antacid. We gave him, he took it and sat down. But suddenly he got up and said that I'm not feeling well for some strange reason. I'll do one thing, I'll retire for the day. And he proceeded. So Shilpa and Sachin went out. As we saw him off, basically I thought that there was something wrong out there, and I mentioned to Shilpa that if you feel that the need to call a doctor or anything, if they find any problem, then please do let us know if you want some help for the same. And they left.
Okay. And this was now reaching a night time. This was, I don't remember the exact time, but it was somewhere near night 12 o'clock. So we took the stairs because his house is at 3rd floor, mine is at 6th floor, and for these 3 floors we don't take lifts. So I just climbed up, but while climbing up, this was intensifying as on its own, may not be because of the stairs, it was intensifying. So I told my wife that moment I reach home, I am going to change my clothes, I am going to wash myself, and you just put the AC full blast on. And I want to just cool down and relax a bit. So I went into the bathroom. I just changed over, put a lot of water, cold water on myself and on my face, on my hair, everything. I got refreshed basically, and I came out. By the time the AC was full blast on, I stood before the AC and started walking inside that room a little bit. But the feeling was intensifying and it was getting more and more scary. So I started getting this feeling that this is certainly an attack. This is certainly leading to something severe, and little bit anxiety, little bit I will say getting scared about things that maybe if I open my mouth and call a doctor, then at this moment I will be taken and rushed to an hospital, and maybe somebody will operate on me, and what will happen to me. So all that thought started coming. At the same time, I also knew that if I don't act now, if I don't do anything, then maybe it's the end of the story. So what to do? It's a dilemma. And that is why I'm describing this incident in such a depth, that if you are the person who are reaching a state where you are thinking about in such a situation, it is an emergency situation. And I realized it only when my wife took a decision of calling the doctor, and the doctor came rushing.
I'm Shilpa, Sachin's wife. It was the first day of Ganpati when all this happened. By the time we came home, it was 11:30 in the night, and a little discomfort had started in his chest, which we thought must be due to acidity. After vomiting, We had expected the discomfort to reduce or die down, but instead it aggravated a lot. That was the time both of us realized that it may be something as severe as a heart attack, and so we decided to call Dr. Kochar, who stays in the adjacent building. Sachin was in a bit dilemma because he didn't want to disturb the doctor at this odd hour, because by the time we decided that we should call him, it was already 12 in the night. On calling Dr. Kochar, he immediately came home within 5 minutes, and that was really very nice of him because he's not our immediate neighbor. He stays in the adjacent building, but he managed to reach home as early as that. And that saved him, of course. Grace of God, things are pretty well now.
And I was saved thankfully because of the quick intervention of my friend who is a doctor. His name is Dr. Nitin Kochar. He was a part of the singing troupe which I mentioned. Fortunately, we were together. He had seen the symptoms and he knew what to expect. So when my wife called him at night, I'm sure he was not awake at that time, but he rushed as an emergency service. He rushed to my home. He stays right adjacent to in the next building basically, and he reached within 2 minutes or 5 minutes with whatever basic things required. And the first thing that he did was, everything was planned. My wife had kept the door open and I was made to sit in a chair there in very near to the door. He came in and he popped in one tablet. It was Disprin. Disprin is what he has given me. I hear that there are other tablets also which can work equally, but Disprin is what was given to me, and he asked me to chew it without water basically. So what they say is, in such circumstances, while you are getting an attack, you should not be drinking water. Maybe it will aggravate at that time. So water was not to be given. So he gave me the Disprin directly and asked me to chew it and consume, and that is the right approach. Of course, he's a doctor, he knows that it's the right approach, but this is for your general information, that if you have a Disprin nearby you, it is going to tremendously help you and give you that one maybe golden hour or more time for you to reach to the hospital. So the first step was getting that Disprin at the right point of time, and that is something that prolonged my time on this earth. So I don't know that how powerful that tablet turned out to be. So that Disprin was given to me, and slowly things started subsiding a little bit for me, because I think it removes the clots. I'm not a doctor, so I'm not the right person to tell you what exactly it does internally. I'm not supposed to tell you, but what I have heard of, it removes clots. So wherever those clots are. So this Disprin tablet is handy in many situations, and maybe you can ask your doctor about what are those situations in which taking a Disprin may be unsafe. So bearing those conditions where it is unsafe, or if it is unsafe for you, I do not know. But for most people, Disprin works wonders in such situations to save yourself, to save the patient, to reach to the right place, and it provides time because the clots are removed, the blood supply is now reinstated somewhat, and you have time in your hands, and that is the first step.
At 12:30 midnight, I received the call from Shilpa in a very frightened voice, saying that Sachin is not feeling well and he has vomited once or twice. So I was fast asleep then, and I immediately woke up and went there with my blood pressure instrument and pulse oximeter. And Sachin was comfortably sitting. He is just staying next to my building. So he was comfortably sitting in a chair, and he said, "Doctor, don't worry, Shilpa is unnecessarily frightened and we will see in the morning." So I said, no, let me check you first. So friends, he was just sitting comfortably. Okay, he said, just I had vomiting because of the indigestion, because of the acidity. So that was his diagnosis, which generally happens with all the patients. But I knew that he is a diabetic patient, and diabetic patients, they do not get chest pain even though they get heart attack. So I just saw his pulse, which is slightly on a lower side, low volume. He was having little sweating. So I immediately sensed that this could be a heart attack. So without wasting time, I gave him a tablet Disprin, which I was carrying with me, 300 milligram Disprin. I asked him to chew, and I very gently told him that please Sachin, let us go and do the one ECG. So initially, he was reluctant. No, doctor, we will see in the morning. But then I insisted. I firmly insisted. No, we have to do ECG. Fortunately, he and Shilpa, they both agreed. And I went to the first hospital nearby nursing home, Chauhan nursing home. And I did his ECG, and I found that there is a heart attack and mostly two of the walls are inferior and lateral wall, which are the main wall, are affected. So it was a very crucial time to explain. In such a time, there was nobody. It was a Ganpati festival. All family members were busy. And so I said, please calm down. I didn't tell anything to Sachin on that day, at that moment. And then I took him to the bigger hospital, Kokilaben Hospital, and where all the process and procedures were done. Fortunately, doctor came immediately. They did the angiography and they confirmed that there are multiple vessels are blocked. And he was then advised to undergo either angioplasty or bypass. But then later on, he was decided to undergo bypass surgery. And that's it. So the point is, if you are able to diagnose the case of heart attack, so time is what I call life. Time is money, we all know, but time is life. So one has to sense, don't just jump to the conclusion that this vomiting or little chest pain is because of the acidity. And please mind it, he didn't have chest pain. He had little discomfort and vomiting. He took 2 antacids, but in spite of that, the vomiting was there. So, and it is very easy to attribute that because, he had outside food, Ganpati festival there, he was singing, I was singing, and all exertion can cause. It was very, very easy to get carried away all this by history. But what helped you is your sixth sense and with your, proper diagnostic skill. So thankfully, I'm thankful to Shilpa that she, called me at a minute of hour and we could save his life. Thank you very much.
After that, I think about 1 hour passed, and just as me and Aboli, we were about to go to bed, we received a call from Shilpa saying that I am already at an hospital where they are taking Sachin's ECG. So that's when we realized that whatever we were feeling, that he's at some discomfort, and our horrors were coming true for that point of time. And Shilpa mentioned to us that they're going directly to Kokilaben Ambani Hospital, and we said that we'll join you out there, don't worry. And we immediately started for Kokilaben Hospital out there.
So those of you who are interested in the symptoms, there are a few more things that happened even before the doctor reached home and before even my wife called the doctor. I started walking up and down the house. I could not rest or relax. The thing seemed to be working for me because internally everything seemed to be haywire. So what is that internal thing? Over here I found some abnormality, something that is pumping wrongly or maybe irregularly. I could sense that this is not pumping correctly. Secondly, I was having a sort of a vomiting like sensation. So I felt that maybe that acidity levels have reached high, or maybe it's I need to vomit, and maybe then I will feel better. And I was actually hoping and praying that it should be vomiting only, and there is nothing else, that this story should end with vomiting. That is what I was thinking, and surely it happened. I had a very strong vomiting sensation. I went again to the bathroom, and there was a lot of vomiting that happened. And momentarily everything subsided. I felt okay. For some 10 seconds I must have felt okay. I just brushed my teeth and everything, and I wanted to give the happy news to my wife and everyone at home that hey, I am fine, there is no problem with me. But it was short lived, because after that 10 seconds this feeling intensified. It intensified like anything, and that is the time when I told my wife that this is an attack. And I just looked up a little bit while the doctor was coming up, and it was mentioned there that this is one of the symptoms. So I was almost certain that maybe this is I'm moving towards an attack, and maybe I was having an attack at that particular time when I was moving up and down and this intensified feeling was there. That is the time when I was actually facing an attack, and it could have been a fatal situation. Somehow the body could hold on to it, and then help reached on time. Now, after giving me the tablet, the doctor told me to immediately, in the same clothes, whatever time it is, without even wasting even a second, he said that let's rush to a nearby hospital for a ECG. So I was telling him that, oh, let me at least change. I'm in t-shirt and shorts or sort of night dress or something. So shall I change? He said, nothing doing, not even 1 second. We have to just rush. And that is another thing that you have to be careful about. When you get these symptoms, you got the emergency tablet maybe, and then you have to rush to a hospital without even thinking whether it is attack or whether it is not an attack. There are enough examples that I know of who took a wrong decision, that maybe let me sleep overnight and let me reach hospital maybe tomorrow morning if everything is all right. That tomorrow never came. Some of them took a late decision and some of them did not reach the hospital. So every second counts. So if you are facing a problem, do not hesitate to go there immediately. Some of you who may be thinking that, oh, hospitals may are waiting to loot you and maybe waiting for you to come there and then they will admit you without rhyme or reason. No, it is not so. There are enough friends whom I personally know who have gone there thinking that they have got an attack, but they have been returned by the hospital saying that this is nothing, this is not an attack. We have done your ECG, and of course the charges for ECG were taken. In my case, it was clear cut. There was a big problem. So we rushed in the doctor's car. He was gracious enough to drive himself and take me to an hospital. My wife accompanied me. And when we started off in a nearby nursing home, he took me first to take an ECG. ECG did not turn out to be so good. Obviously, there was a problem. And in that hospital also there were some tablets given to me which were like blood thinners, so which also further helped me and gave me more time to act on. After that, immediately in the same car, doctor's car, now this time it was a wheelchair given to me. They said that okay, I should not even walk, and I was a bit stunned and surprised that, oh, I was walking so far and everything seems to be fine now. After taking that tablet, things are fine. So why should I not, just walk towards the car which was just standing, just parked alongside? But no, they did not allow me that also. So less movement basically. So I went in a wheelchair. I sat in the car, and being a Ganpati day, as I was mentioning, being a Ganpati day, it's a big event in India, at least this part of Maharashtra where I stay. So what happens is, almost all of the people are inside their houses, and it was anyway beyond night 12 o'clock. But being a Ganpati day, it was a festive occasion where there's hardly anybody on the streets. So this big advantage I got. If I had to have an attack, I think this was the best time to have an attack. Why I'm saying? Because the roads were empty and hardly anybody there, and the doctor could take me with a good amount of speed. We reached a hospital called Kokilaben Hospital, and they were quite ready with their emergency preparedness. So moment I reached there, it was like almost 10-15 people, battery of doctors and nurses and attendants. They rushed, and I was attached to a lot of things, probes basically, to check me out, and within minutes they could decipher what's wrong. They also gave me a few tablets, and I was amazed by their service. In fact, in reality, people keep on sometimes talking a little bit negative. Some people have got good experiences, some people do not have good experiences, some people do not have any experience about hospital, but they keep speculating based on what they keep hearing. But my personal experience is this hospital was amazing right from the word go, and the emergency preparedness was terrific, I will say. I was really happy to see myself in good hands. So the entire battery of doctors, they spent some time on me, and it is first time that they told me that I had undergone a major attack. it was a major attack. When I described, what was going on in the bedroom that I was moving to and fro, they said that is the time when you were undergoing a major attack, and it's God's grace that nothing happened to you during that time, because that could have really can be a very fatal kind of a thing if not handled correctly, maybe at that time. So I was checked up, and then they concluded that there is a problem, so let us shift immediately to a ICU. So I was taken to an ICU from there, where the main doctor would arrive and take a decision on me. So I was admitted to the ICU, intensive care unit, and of course before that there was the stage where angiography for me was done. So in this angiography, what I was hoping was, okay, there may be maybe more than one clot, maybe there can be single clot or more than one clot. So they may put a stent in me, or maybe 2 stents, or maybe at the most 3 stents in me, and then they will release me from here, and then it will be like I should be then back home, is what I was expecting. Some money would be taken in exchange of this. But the angiography happened, and the doctor, the cardiologist did not take a decision there and then. They said that, okay, there is no hurry. There is this probe that is put inside by making a small incision somewhere down below here, on your above your thigh, from where the probe is sent, and then they would have studied this. They said, okay, let the probe remain that way, and maybe we will take a decision. There is no hurry. And then I was taken to the ICU again on the bed. So that is the time when I suspected that there seems to be something more to it, because what I know of is that when the angiography is done, and if there are any clots, then the doctor will normally advise you to go for a angioplasty. That means putting the stents at the right place, so that your artery, the blood flow starts, and it will be done back to back kind of a thing. But since I was not given that kind of an option, I realized that there seems to be something more to it, something wrong. So I was kept in the ICU, and when in the ICU, after some time, when you get accustomed to the surroundings and other things, the doctor came in. He was visiting different patients, and he came to me, the cardiologist, and then he told me the situation. He told me that there are multiple clots, and going for so many stents may not be the right approach, and maybe a bypass operation would be required. So just listening to him, as a person who is a recipient of that bypass operation, was not a very good feeling. When you are the patient, you don't feel that, okay, I will be cut upon, my body will be cut open. We keep on hearing bypass for others, we keep on hearing some operations for others, but not to self. And when it comes on to self, that is the time when you start thinking, is it real? Is it something that is really going to be done on my body? Or is it a nightmare that I am going through? Or will it be averted somehow? Maybe there is a miracle and I may not be required to undergo something like that. My body should not be cut open, is what I started thinking of. So what is this bypass all about? So I was in that ICU thinking about my own bypass now. So bypass literally means they will be cutting open your ribs from here. Okay, so there is a cutter. Of course, you are unconscious during that time when it happens, but there is a cutter which cuts open your ribs centrally, and this entire your rib cage will be opened out. Now that thought itself was something that is enough to trouble someone. And then of course that the entire thing is opened. Why? Because they want to operate on you. They want to operate with your heart in an open position. The heart will be there, but the cage in an open position. And nowadays what I know of is the heart is pumping while they perform this operation. Like in olden days, they used to keep the heart away and then maybe reactivate the heart. It was kept in some different condition, and then it was activated later on. But with this advancement of technique, the heart is pumping while the operation is going on. So I guess that makes it much more difficult for the doctor. So I really think that these doctors who are performing these surgeries are agents of God, who are able to work on a human body in such a way that they keep that body alive. So it's a very big thing that these doctors are doing, and I realized it firsthand when I started thinking about it. So now I am still into the time before my surgery, and it is all those mental kind of feelings that it's going to happen to me. Now what will it be like? What will be my life be after this point of time? Whether I will be able to function everything properly? Some unwanted fears were also there. That I had heard that okay, there will be a mesh around. When they put everything in place later on after the end of the operation, there will be a mesh around it. What if I lift some load later on in my life and this mesh opens? It's a unwarranted for kind of a thought now. Now I feel like laughing when I think back, but that thought was there. That will lifting a weight make this to break open inside. But later on, all my such kind of anxieties were cleared off by the doctor. So what the surgeon, when I met the surgeon, he was so good, Dr. Lad, so good, very young chap, and very patiently he explained to me everything. That why first of all a bypass is suitable for me, why it is important that you go for a bypass, and how a bypass will prolong your life. It may be a temporary setback, and I may be for 5-6 months I may be struggling with all those things, but later on all this heals, and when the rib cage heals, then there is nothing, no looking back. You are like any other healthy person who you can even lift loads and everything like a normal person. So there is no need to worry. So all that confidence he had given to me prior to the surgery itself, and the decision to go for a surgery was left on me. Whether you still want to go for a stent, though it is not advised, or whether you will go for the advised one, which is the surgery. So it gave me some kind of peace of mind to have some time in hands, because I was in safe hands now, and there was no such urgency that I was feeling. And with that time I could clearly think, and I took a decision of going through the operation because of the kind of counseling that was done during that time. At the same time, I realized one very important thing. The important thing is that during such time when you are onto a bed where you are going to be taken to a critical operation, you start thinking about, have you done everything in your life? What if you would have not survived? What if that attack would have killed me there and then? So did I do enough in my life so far? That was the first thought that came in, and I decided that once I am out of all this, I am going to start something which I will enjoy doing. My hobby is basically my passion. I will start doing it in my own way, because the time is now or never. I mean, the time could have just gone away. So I should do that. That was the first thing that I learned. The second thing that I learned, important decision, is that your friends around you are an important asset. So let me tell you that during this emergency, my friends were the ones who could rush from wherever they are, and they could reach to this place to support me and my family. So especially the first one which I started off, Chetan, and there are quite a few friends in my same building. So all of these people. So when we were on the en route to hospital, my wife called up my friend Chetan and said that, okay, though we were with you for some time, and now this has happened and we are rushed to the hospital. Back to back, they came back at night and in the hospital, and they supported my wife in variety of ways. They were there throughout my journey. Okay. So Chetan is one example, and there are many other friends who rushed, and there was never a situation where my family was left unsupported. So everybody came, variety of advices were there, So there may be conflicting advices which may go totally in a different direction than what you may be thinking. But all this, frankly speaking, these advices are required, and it requires our own sane judgment to select which ones are the correct ones. And that is one advice I am giving you, that during this situation, do not get aggravated because people may be giving variety of advices and they may be pulling you apart. So this is not to pull you apart. People are giving you advices because they believe in the advice that they are giving. You as a family, or you as a person who are the party who is affected, you should be taking a correct, informed and sane decision by looking into this in a realistic sense, and with your own situation, your financial situation, your medical situation, and many other situations that you only know of. You have to take the decision. Do not get perturbed because of advices, or do not get swayed also. So this happened, and there are a lot of people who really help. Hence, my advice to you is, have good friends who will be there for you, and you should be there for them also when the need comes. Okay, while I am talking about friends, there is an endless list of friends that I can virtually go on taking names: Ashish, Saili, Amit, a lot of friends who kept on, Rajiv, a lot of them. But especially I am taking two names now because they were there right from the very beginning till the end. That is Chetan and his wife Aboli. Both of them were like strong pillars with me. So you need such kind of friends, and maybe all of the other friends also would have done that. But these two of them, this couple, was there with us quite strongly, apart from my friend Dr. Kochar. So they were quite strongly with us. So what used to happen is, lot of advices coming were filtered through these channels. These friends also helped us to filter some advices, and my wife was doing a great job on keeping a sort of a control over her own emotions, because this was a tormenting time for her. And the greater part was, she was discussing with me every decision that could come up and what are the different thoughts, and allowing me to participate in that kind of a decision making process. So that is another important learning. As a patient in the hospital, I was at peace of mind that things are working out very well for her. There are enough people supporting her. She comes and discusses with me rather than taking a rash or harsh decision, and suddenly, if I was to found that suddenly they are rushing me to some other place or a third place, it would have created some unnecessary panic. So this was discussed with me, and collectively we were taking these decisions. So that is also a very important step, that if the patient is in condition of discussion, then the patient needs to be involved in a decision making process if he or she is in a condition. And I believe whenever there is a heart attack situation, and if a bypass is coming up as an operation, and at that point the patient is stable, he or she can surely be in a condition to talk to, and discussions can definitely happen. So while a person or a patient is in hospital, you need enough people around you to do some crucial activities. And if they are doing their part as a crucial activity, then it gives tremendous relief to the family and to the patient, of course, eventually. So one such activity, one very important activity, was done by my wife's brother Ashish. He was managing the whole show, where he was liaising with my office colleagues, especially one colleague called Mandar, and there are various other colleagues who guided him from a insurance kind of a perspective. What is it that my office would support, and my office has really supported me very well in all respects, in terms of leave, in terms of expanding my insurance premiums, and a lot of very good things, I will say. Whoever I am reporting to have tremendously helped me. So all these good relations are really coming to good use. So what I am mentioning is this Ashish, he has taken a workload out of our head during that time, managing the whole show, from the monetary perspective. So monetary perspective meaning it is more of the insurance perspective with the procedural part of the hospital. Everything was very well managed, and also emotional support. The most crucial thing that I want to discuss over here from a perspective of mental tuning, which he helped me in. So the night before my surgery was a little bit time of anxiety for me as well. So one thing that he talked to me was that there is nothing that is in your hands now. So the only thing that is there is submitting your body to the doctor. And that, I don't know, suddenly it made me relax. That, just as you submit to God, you are submitting your body to the doctor, and there is nothing that I can do about it. So might as well just relax. And another analogy that came to my mind as well is that there are people who are sometimes, prisoners basically, and they are subjected to sort of a capital punishment, and the night before what they must be undergoing. Something like that came into my mind, which is not a correct analogy to give, but then I thought, okay, for me it is not a capital punishment. I am going to have life after this, and they don't have life after that. So it is a positive situation for me, and there is no need to be anxious. Doctor is supportive. He is telling me that everything will be all right, and there are people, examples who have undergone bypass and who are functioning very well in this world. So what is the worry all about? And with that, I could sleep peacefully for that particular night. Now, just before the surgery, the night surgery, though I was asleep and I was woken up maybe a little bit early, they give you a betadine kind of a wash the prior night. Maybe it's some kind of an antiseptic, I don't know, but it was really cold for me, and started shivering a lot for that. They do a hair removal exercise first. They shave off your entire hair of your body, meaning basically all the places from where operation will be required to be done, and then they give this kind of a wash. So that was done. Now comes the day of the operation itself, and in the morning this operation was to be performed. So I was taken to the operation theatre. Now the feeling, I am being taken on a mobile stretcher, the bed itself is moving, and I am going towards the theatre with a blank head, basically no thoughts. So I had stopped thinking, frankly speaking. There was no fear, there was no thoughts. I was going with the flow, that okay, now they are going to put me on anesthesia and maybe I will be knocked off and I will not even know. That is what the doctor had told me. So the same thing happened. So they took me to the theatre. They attached a few things to me, few tubes here and there. And in the saline they might have put some anesthesia chemical or so, I don't know what exactly did they put where. And they were questioning me, they were talking to me a little bit here and there, and they were explaining to me some procedure, this will happen, that will happen, and then when you wake up you will find yourself in the ICU room, it may be a different bed, it may not be the same bed, all those kind of things. The entire process of after the operation, what will be the scenario, there will be a tube in my mouth and I should not panic looking at that tube when I get back to senses, I should be relaxed, or there may be some relative around to soothe me, and all those things. Some instructions were given to me during just before that operation, and I assume that the anesthesia was given to me during all this time, and while talking I don't even know when I was put to sleep. There was a situation where I was put to sleep, and from that point I really do not know anything. Obviously I was operated and everything was done during that time. When I woke up, I was already operated on, and slowly I could gather my senses to find that I am on a bed of ICU, and there is a nurse in front of me near my legs, and she is talking to me. She is calling out my name. So the nurse was repeatedly taking my name, and I could open my eyes slowly to find that, oh, there is a tube, in a larger kind of tube inside my trachea, inside my mouth, and I don't exactly remember at this point whether the oxygen mask was placed on top of that or whether it was just the tube. But there were a lot of tubes coming. Some tube was inserted from here, somewhere inside my neck. Then there was some tube going inside here as well. So tubes basically which had pierced my body and they were inside. And there was something tied over here. Obviously, there was one artery that was removed from this place, and it was removed from my leg, and that was being used as a bypass mechanism somewhere from where they will remove the artery and then they will replace it over there. But then this has to be wound up quite tightly so that it doesn't create any different kind of a problem over here. So it was very, very tight actually. It was so tight that I was afraid that this may create a problem for me, but it was having some reason and the doctors knew it. So things were in control. But myself, I was absolutely like an immobilized person with this tube and all, and I was really hoping that this tube should be removed quite fast, because it was like a caged person. It was like a person who has lost his mobility for the time being. And of course, I knew that there is a process to it, and they had mentioned to me that it will take 2 days for you to completely come out of all these tubes and all, and then you will be moved from an ICU to a general ward after 2 days, which is a miracle, because just 2 days of ICU after such a major surgery is something that doesn't seem to be so great. However, these 2 days, I want to tell you, are not so great days. These 2 days are something that makes you rethink that, whether this is going to be really painful. So beware of these 2 days. So just after surgery, 2 days are not going to be good at all. They may be, you may be really wanting to get over these 2 days. That is what I mean. So first of all, this tube, till what time this tube will remain, it was creating a lot of discomfort to me, and I was literally wanting that this tube be removed. But they had to ensure that my breathing, normal breathing, has started properly, and only then they could remove this tube. So there are oximeters and variety of things that they are monitoring. So slowly, one by one, when they had confidence, they could remove one by one, those kind of things. And this tube, when they removed it from my trachea, it was a large tube, and the removal of that tube itself, it's a pulling kind of a motion, so it was right as if the tube had gone up to my stomach. I don't know where actually it had gone, but it created a sort of an impact, right as if they are pulling it from my stomach, that entire thing, like a pipeline. So which created a sort of a fear in my mind that there are various tubes, and when they pull out these tubes, it will create this kind of a pain. So eventually, time after time, I was asking them, can you remove this tube, can you remove that tube, because it was giving me a lot of discomfort, and I was really praying and hoping that all these tubes I should be now free from, and I should be functioning normal. And surely they had their own process of doing it. They had their own timings of doing it. Of course, one cannot bypass things just because a patient wants it. It is the right process that they have to follow. And there were a lot of doctors looking for the right time and right opportunity to do all those things. And one by one, those tubes were really pulled apart. Some of them were really painful to be removed, and I had to take a lot of deep breaths before it can be actually removed. So these 2 days, that is why I am saying, are the days of real suffering after the bypass operation. The bypass itself is nothing, I will say. I mean, it's a great talent for the doctor, but as a patient, you are just knocked off. You don't even know what's happening. But after the bypass, 2 days you have to suffer a lot. But afterwards, once you are taken into from the ICU to the generic ward, things start getting better and better from that stage. But very soon now, I will tell you the recovery process, and what is it that in the recovery process which remains as a prolonged problems, and which, if somebody is recovering, they may be facing these issues, and they may be feeling that, oh well, whether this problem will ever get away from my life, or this is a lifelong feature. Some of them wonder. I used to search the net during that time in my recovery process, that whether this is a lifelong feature, and there are conflicting thoughts that you will get on the net. But my practical example, I will just tell you. So post surgery, when you start bathing yourself, first time in the hospital itself, they will do an arrangement where they will give you an attendant for bathing for the first time, and it feels heavenly when you are bathing with some warm water. That is the first experience that you get after some few days. Secondly, they also make you walk around and do some basic exercises. What happens is, because this operation has happened just now, and the rib cage has been tied with metallic string from inside, and it is going to take some time to heal. The body itself is a lot of susceptible for maybe other viruses, and you yourself just cannot afford to have a coughing sensation. It will be like a big painful thing to even cough, because it builds right pressure over here. And there will be a physiotherapist who will visit you in that general ward, and they will make you to hold your hand in such a way, and give you a practice of coughing, about how to cough without putting pressure over here. And that is really something you will get afraid of. So I at least got afraid of that. If I get cough and cold during this situation, then I had it. Or sneezing, I just cannot imagine a sneezing happening with this kind of a situation. So one has to be really be alert to such kind of things, and stay away from all kind of infections. So the best part is, you should not, best thing to do is, when after surgery, you should not meet people, and maybe your household people should contact those whoever is willing to come and visit, and tell them not to come, because you cannot afford to have any minutest infection, or even the cough and cold types. So that is one thing. They give you some physiotherapy exercises, and there will be some chest breathing exercises that they will give you. One small device where you have to blow into that, and then it shows you the level, it expands your lung capacity. So all that exercises will keep on happening. One finds a lot of discomfort while getting up. So if you lie down horizontally on a bed, it becomes almost impossible to get out of that bed on your own. You need support, which is why it is a better idea to get a recliner bed for the time being at home as well. So that is what I did, a recliner bed, and then I could actually keep it at a reclined position already, and I used to sleep that way. So sleeping after this surgery for a long time to come is going to be very difficult. You cannot turn. So for most of the time, obviously you cannot sleep on your chest anymore for a few months, and then later on, after those months, you can do whatever you want. But for those few months, you will be on your back only, and that really builds pressure on your entire body. You are not able to get good sleep. You can't even turn like this or like this, because you can't even turn. Actually, it builds pressure on you, and you feel afraid to even turn. There will be numbness of your hand. There can be burning sensation on the overall chest, and there will be pain all across where it is cut open. Okay, so all these problems you will live with for some time. But slowly these problems will go off. You will find yourself having a movement in bed after a few months. Basically, it will take time, depending upon the person to person. It may take a few more months for somebody, but you will be able to turn around in bed. There is constantly a belt that you have to wear, the chest belt that you have to wear, even when you are sleeping. So there will be a time when, during sleeping at least, you can remove that. When you go out, you should be still wearing that chest belt. It is for protection, and it is for support. So with all these kind of constraints, it becomes very difficult. Frankly speaking, it becomes very difficult, and whoever tells you don't worry, after operation everything will be fine, it is not true. It will, for the 6-7 months, you will be struggling with it, to be very frank. But after those initial 5-6-7 months, depending upon person to person, you will find everything going away. The numbness of the hand, I don't even realize when it went away. Every day I was checking during that time, still this is numb, still this is numb. But one day it has gone away, and I didn't even realize it when it had gone away. Similarly, the the burning sensation, every day there used to be a burning sensation. I used to put some lactocalamine or some kind of creams. Eventually I stopped putting those creams as well, and I thought, okay, let it happen, whatever happens. But that sensation also, after some 6-7 months, on its own it went off, because this nerve endings are sheared off during the operation, so they are trying to regenerate themselves, which is why this comes up. So after 5-6 months they would have got regenerated maybe, and this feeling goes off. So now effectively what has happened after all these months, it has been almost an year now that I have gone through this surgery, and I am fit and fine, able to do anything and everything. In fact, my stamina levels have increased dramatically. I can now climb steps from 0 to 12 without really feeling much about it in terms of stamina. Earlier, 4th floor, 5th floor, I used to start feeling it, but now I can go to 0 to 12 also as an exercise part. I can do whatever exercise that I really want to do. In fact, a good thing that has happened is my diabetes levels have drastically reduced. I was on insulin injections, which is now no more. I have to take those injections. So there are a lot of positive things that have happened. I have slimmed down immediately after the surgery. Much more fat was built earlier, but now slimmed down after the surgery. And if one maintains that, then it's a positive thing to happen. So whoever is undergoing this bypass, if doctor is advising, go forward for it. There will be a time where there will be some suffering associated with it. I will not say no, but after that you are like a new person, and enjoy your hobbies, pursue your passion, and don't forget to live life to the fullest. Most importantly, if you are not done it already, you need to have good friends around you. So I hope this video has really helped you, and the intent of this video is fulfilled. So thank you very much for listening it out. Thanks a lot.